And let's finish the 5th chapter of the Darkangel, which is called Prince Irrylath. We've heard the legend of a prince that was drowned by his nurse as a sacrifice to a water witch. We know that our vampire in this story's mother is a Lorelei, which is another name for a water witch. Could they be the same person? Let's find out. Ariel fell silent and sat in the sun on the black slate floor, waiting for some word from the vampire, but no word came. She looked up and saw him staring off across the room, a slight frown marring the unearthly handsome features of his face. "Did you not like the story, my lord?" she asked at last. No expression came into his blank eyes, but his frown deepened a little. "When did this story take place?" he said. His voice was oddly strained. "Years ago," said Ariel, "before I was born." "And where was the kingdom that the chieftain ruled?" the Icarus asked. "Far away from my village, far over the white plain of Avaric." "In what quarter?" the Darkangel demanded, his voice so tight Ariel was startled. "In the west," she answered. "In the north and the west, I think." The vampire began to pace suddenly, round and about before the window. His shadow glided back and forth over Ariel as she sat in the light of the setting soul star. "What was the name of this chieftain?" said the Icarus, pacing and not looking at her. His hand was a fist, while the other gripped and wrung his wrist, as though trying, but vainly, to work some shackle free. Ariel hesitated. "I do not know," she said. "I cannot remember." "Then you do not remember the tale very well, do you?" the Darkangel snapped. "Forgive me, my lord," said Ariel. "I tell the tale as best I can." "The queen!" cried the vampire. "What was the name of the queen?" Ariel had to think a moment long. "Silva," she said finally. "I think it was Silva." "No," said the Icarus. His voice was suddenly harsh and loud. "You are not remembering it right. It was something else. It was not Silva." Ariel said nothing. The vampire's voice had fallen to a mutter at the last. He whirled on her abruptly, toying with his necklace now as if it encircled him too tightly, and his shadow hid the light. "Why are you sitting there so silent?" he cried with sudden suspicion. "Answer me! Say it was not Silva, as my lord commands." Said Ariel, so softly she was afraid he had not heard. The dull clicking of the leaden vials seemed louder. She held her breath, but the Darkangel nodded and half turned away. He dropped his hand from his throat and leaned against the window-sill. "The boy," he said. "Tell me the prince's name." Ariel was at once afraid to answer him and afraid to remain silent. She said, "I cannot remember," and her whisper trembled. But the Icarus seemed hardly to hear. He was staring down the length of the chamber's windowed wall. Ariel stood up. "You say his nurse pushed him in?" the vampire said. Ariel nodded, doubting that he saw. "And his mother went down to the bank and wept for him?" "Wept tears of blood," said Ariel. The Icarus said nothing, and his frown was very deep and dark. His anger was pain to her. "Irrylath," said Ariel. "I remember now. The prince's name was Irrylath." The vampire shuddered and shook his head. "You are mistaken," he told her. There was terrible quietness in his voice. Beyond them, through the window, Soul Star shone in white glow, already half hidden by the mountains. In another hour it would be dark. Dark fortnight would descend, leaving only pale stars and waxing Oceanus for light. Ariel stood, waiting. "Leave me," the Darkangel said, not looking at her. The stillness of his voice frightened her. "Do not come again." Ariel said nothing. She did not know what to say, and left him. And that's the end of Chapter 5. Over on my friend... What is the name of his channel? I am completely forgetting what the name of his channel is. Not Dr. Reed's. Maybe it is Dr. Reed's. Yeah, Dr. Reed's. Over on Dr. Reed's channel, Mr. Carter is about to read Dracula by Bram Stoker. So if you are excited by vampires, you should head over there and check that out. Otherwise, we will see you here in Chapter 6.